10 different types of journaling. So, I recently released a video called Journaling is My Best Friend, and I highly recommend that you check that one out before you listen to this one if you haven't already. Just because the first episode on journaling goes a lot more into kind of the nuts and bolts mechanics of journaling overall and kind of the energetic territory that you're entering when you open up to a blank page and grab a pen and go to town. I do highly recommend the first episode first. And then this episode is to give additional ideas and context around, okay, so now you have a blank piece of paper in front of you. What do you do with it? And what I do with it depends on how I feel. And so I'm going to talk through 10 different types of journaling and give you a sense of like when I do each one and kind of like what each of them are for in my journaling toolkit. So the first one is a gratitude list, and this actually came to me through a TED Talk that I'll link down below by Shawn called The Happy Secret to Better Work, where he talks about 5 different ways that you can train your personal perspective towards positivity, and making a daily gratitude list is one of those 5 things. So I use a gratitude list when I am just kind of like floating. I feel okay. I am maybe just a teensy bit bored. Usually I make my gratitude lists while I'm like watching Seinfeld or Schitt's Creek or like whatever. And I'll just kind of sit there with my journal open in front of me, like no pressure. I'm not like trying to beat the clock or anything. I'm just hanging out, chilling, maybe drinking a beer, making a gratitude list. And then my gratitude lists are usually paragraphs rather than just like my dog, like I'll actually sit there and write down like I'm really grateful for Stella because she's my little buddy and she's just always around me, and I love going to bed with her at night and being able to pet her in the morning before we get up, and I love her little stinky breath, and like I'll sit there and like actually write a little story about why I love Stella so much. But mostly I do that in like free time, spare time, when I just am kind of like looking for something good feeling to do. That's when I'll pull out a gratitude list. Early on, that was kind of one of my main core things of self-care, like to be able to count a day of self-care. I would make a gratitude list with a few things on it. So that's a pretty flexible journaling tool. Number 2 is to do like a brain dump, or what it is also referred to as a stream of consciousness journaling. And there is nothing fancy that you are trying to achieve with this other than to get the thoughts in your mind on paper. And this one, it stands out to me as one of the most powerful because, again, when I use it is usually when I feel like I'm underwater, when I'm drowning, when I'm overwhelmed, when I'm feeling negative emotion and I can't just inside my brain like see my way through it. So usually when I'm doing a brain dump / stream of consciousness, when I'm just writing, just like writing as fast as I can, whatever thought is there, just write it down. And usually that takes quite a while because if I feel like I'm full of that mental energy, it'll take several pages to like get it out. And once I've written it on the page, generally my brain feels emptier. So that's why I call it a brain dump. It's like my brain feels so full it's about to explode. So I'll write everything that's in my brain onto a piece of paper, and then my brain feels empty. And now I can see on the paper, like, what of this stuff is my same old thought patterns of like excessive worry or anxiety, which especially early on was like definitely prevalent, and what of this stuff is actually my job that I need to worry about. What of it can I surrender back to source energy, my higher self? Like, what is actually even happening inside this massive tangled up ball of thoughts? Number 3 is a list of positive aspects on a particular subject. So this is one that Abraham teaches, and you can use it a couple different ways. Personally, I find it to be a lot more helpful when I choose a subject that I can very easily find a lot of positive aspects on. So, like, I'll do this one a lot, like my life. Like the subject is my life, and I'm just listing positive aspects about my life, and I'll do that for several pages worth. So, again, it goes back to that idea of like holding thoughts in your mind on purpose, the thoughts that you want your life force energy to go into and add momentum to. She teaches where you can also kind of like use it for someone that you're having a little bit of a struggle with. So like if you're having a little bit of a tense relationship with someone, especially if it's like your wife or your business partner or something like that, where like you definitely entered into this partnership because at one point you really liked this person. So basically, like, sit down and make a list of positive aspects about that person, essentially, not to forget about all the maybe negative aspects that you know about that person, but like early on when we fall in love, it's because all we see are the positive aspects. And as you get to know somebody, as you spend more time around them, it makes sense that there's going to be, oh, now I see this negative aspect, and now I see this negative aspect. And if you spend enough time, then possibly all you see are the negative aspects, and you've completely lost touch with like, why even were you there in the first place? So in a situation like that, especially where it's a relationship you really care about, you can use it to try to, again, not to give them just a free pass on all the negative things that you witness about them, but to balance it back out and give them credit and fairness for, there's good things and maybe there are things that are less than ideal, but it's really up to us, which side do you want to focus on? So this is kind of an attempt to help you focus on the positive aspects of the person that you're dealing with. Number 4 are focus wheels. So this could be a lot like the list of positive aspects, and it just kind of depends on what mood I'm in. A lot of times I opt for a focus wheel just because I think it's more fun. I'm going to put a picture on the screen here of what that actually looks like as I describe it. It's very simple. Again, I could use my life and put that in a center bubble. And then off of my life, I'm wanting to write down as much positive things as I possibly can around this central idea. So, like, it might look like one bubble says, I love my work and I love the flexibility and freedom of getting to do what I want when I want and still be able to make money and support myself. I love that about my life. I love my house. Maybe that's another bubble that comes off of it. I love my pets. I love my relationship. I love my creativity. And so again, it's a matter of you are focusing into a specific idea. And another few that I've done, so like my like friends, I'll put friends in the middle and then fill in a whole page around like what are like the highest vibrational friendships that I can think of? What do they consist of? And I'll write that stuff on the page. Like, you're essentially focusing into being what you want. And you're doing that by investing your energy into a specific place rather than allowing your energy to be split across a million different places. For more on split energy, check out the first episode about journaling. Number 5, ideas, visions, inspiration, stuff that like just pops into your head. I write a lot of that kind of stuff down, and I developed a little symbol in my journal that lets me know that's something that just popped into my head. So like I'll write like a big carrot, like a big arrow pointing on the page, and then write whatever it was that popped into my head. And that saves me time rather than saying like, this awesome idea just popped into my head. It's like that little symbol on the page tells me that that's exactly what happened, and I can jump straight to what was it that popped into my head. Number 6 are highlights, stories, dreams, and remembering good times. So this again is like focusing yourself into what you want. And This was another one, I think, on the Shawn Achor TED Talk, where he talked about 5 different ways that you can train yourself to positivity. And in addition to the gratitude list, another one of them was journaling a highlight from the day before. So, like, I do that a lot, where in the morning when I journal, a lot of what comes out in the beginning is yesterday this awesome thing happened, and yesterday this awesome thing happened. And then usually it's like, and I'm really excited about today because I get my internet reinstalled, or I get to see this friend, or I get to do this awesome creative thing, or whatever. So, writing down the stories, or like the dreams that you had that felt really good, or even just exploring the ones that didn't feel so good. Also, just remembering good times. Like, if a fun memory pops into my head that I haven't thought about in a long time, maybe I write a couple paragraphs about that, that really did feel good, and what felt good about it. What were the specific components that make that such a good feeling memory? And by focusing in those components, again, you're magnetizing yourself for more of that kind of energy to come to you. Number 7 is emotional exploration and awareness, essentially shadow work, or like the observation deck that we talked about. When I'm feeling something that I don't understand, like it's just present, it doesn't really make sense to me, whether it feels good or bad. That's where, again, I'll go get on the observation deck and just start describing what I'm witnessing. So I have like insane electricity in my body. I don't know why. It's just really weird. I feel really lethargic. I don't feel like focusing on what I normally focusing on right now. Like, just describe whatever is going on, just write it down on the page. And again, from the observation deck, and with even just that little bit of emotional detachment, I find it's really a lot easier and more productive to explore our emotions from that place. And even if you don't get all the way to the bottom of it, again, even just spending time in that awareness of like this is what's going on, and this is what's going on, and this is what's going on. It's like, as you do that, chances are more thoughts like it are going to join it, and you're going to get to see more. Like, if you'll sit with it, allow it to unfold itself, like another thought will come, and another thought will come, and write that one down, and write that one down, and write that one down. And you get back more towards the root of, wow, like this emotion that I'm feeling, yes, maybe it was because my boss said this thing to me, but as I really sit with it, the reason that this is so powerful is because it reminds me of this time with this other boss. And as I write that down, it reminds me of this other thing with my parents. And as I write that down, it reminds me of this other thing. Like, so you get to see why some emotions feel so big and nebulous, is because they are connected. They are showing you a network of wounding, a pattern that it's spawned many, many, many different experiences in your life. And this current experience of the emotion is just the latest in this whole series. So exploring emotion, it's generally, as I find it, a very slow process, because again, you're having to slow down to like write down what you're witnessing, write down what you're observing. And like I said, when you start, another thought comes, and another thought comes, and another thought comes. And if you just keep writing down the one thought that you have right now, you don't, I mean, the whole point is that you don't know where it's going to end up. You have to trust that, like, just, it'll give you a thought, write it down. It'll give you a thought, write it down. Just keep going. And if there's a pause, if you just like all of a sudden need to cry it out for a couple minutes, then do that. And then write down, I just had a wave of emotion and I cried for a couple minutes, and now I'm breathing and I'm feeling better. And now that I think about it, like those tears, it actually felt really good to kind of get that tension. So like, write it down. Just keep writing it down and see where you end up. It's usually very surprising. Number 8 are conversations with your higher self, with the God of your own understanding. Or you can also phrase this as like your inner child talking with your inner parent. So we each inside of us have our human self, and our soul self, our God self. We each have the inner child and the inner parent. We have ego and soul. Like, these are kind of all the same concepts. For me personally, I resonate most with having a conversation with the God of my understanding, which is essentially to say, like, however you understand what God energy is, that's perfect. You don't need to be different. You also don't need to convince anybody else that yours is the right way for it to work for you. So, in my understanding of what God is, I'm essentially talking to my own higher self. I personally believe that we are each an extension of source energy. So when I talk about my higher self, I'm talking about source energy itself. I think all of us are linked back to source energy directly and have God flowing through us all the time. That is my own personal belief, and that is why it works for me to address God, because I'm not talking to an external God figure. I'm literally talking to my own higher self, and then having conversations like, what would you have me know today? And clearing your mind and seeing what comes back through. The other one that I really like, and this is an idea that came from Elizabeth Gilbert. I've heard a lot of people talk about like asking your spiritual support for help, like asking them to help you with certain things or help me get through this, or, asking for help. And I've tried that, and it's worked with varying levels of success in my past. But when she talked about it, she talked about not asking for their help so much as you just give it to them to handle. You're like, I don't want help with this. I want you to do it for me. Which is like maybe subtle, maybe, I don't know. To me, it was profound. It was like, you're telling me I don't even have to do it? I don't have to do any of it? Like, they'll just do it for me? Yes. Yes, they will. And so a lot of times, like, especially when I'm feeling heavy or I'm feeling overwhelmed or stressed or maxed out, my conversations with my God sound a lot like God asking me, what's heavy? What can we take for you? What do you want our help with? What can we hold for you until later when you can come back to it? And just one thing at a time, I write out like, okay, I don't know what to do with this. And God's like, yes, let me hold it for you. We'll work on it, and if you want to come back, you can have it back at any moment. Like, it's like a golf caddy, like they're just holding your stuff. They don't own it. They're just giving you, like, here's your putter, do your putt, give it back to them. Here's your driver, do your drive, give it back to them. So my God takes things off of my plate, and again, I'm doing that process through my journal. Number 9 is called Pre-Paving, and again, this is an Abraham Hicks process that she taught me. And pre-paving is essentially where you are going into your future and you are writing about what that experience will be, and you're telling the truth about what that experience will be. And so, for example, in 2017, I had a vision of myself on the hot seat, which is what Abraham Hicks calls the chair, where somebody comes and sits and asks a question and they respond and they have a conversation for 10 or 15 minutes, and then that person goes back to their seat and the next person comes up to the hot seat. And so I had a vision of myself on the hot seat having a face-to-face conversation with Abraham Hicks. And because of that, I decided to go look at like what tickets were available, what events were available. And I saw, like, as I went on the website, I was like, ooh, like, wouldn't it be cool if I like met her on the 1-year anniversary of listening to her? Like, yeah, that would be cool. I wonder if there's any shows, like just kind of going with it. And I go and I look, okay, so July 9th of 2017, that would be the 1-year anniversary of when I first started listening to her every single day. And I looked and there was an Alaskan cruise. And this is like January, February of 2017, and the Alaskan cruise is in July. And so for 5 or 6 months, I pre-paved that cruise, I talked about all of the magical experience. Well, like this is like more word for word what I would write down. It's like there are going to be so many magical experiences, like all of the cooperative components that get brought together in divine timing so that I make a left when I'm supposed to make a left, and I go here when I'm supposed to go here. Like all the divine impulses that are going to guide me through those 9 days and make it the magical experience that I know it's going to be. Like, I know that coming back from that trip, like, I will be so much more sure footed in my own divinity, in my own well being than I am right now. Like, also, I know that all of the different experiences that are going to happen over these next few months that are going to put me into the perfect headspace to step on board that cruise, and then all of the amazing conversations that I'm going to have. So, like, I spent 5 or 6 months pre-paving that cruise, and it was literally the most magical 9 days I have ever spent on this planet. And every single bit of it came true, including the face-to-face moment with Abraham. I'm gonna link a podcast episode in the description, because again, that was like one of the most magical events of my life, and it didn't happen on the hot seat. It happened in real life. I got to stand face to face with her, and the universe conspired to make it so. And I didn't have to orchestrate it. They did it on my behalf, because I spent hours, hours and hours and hours and hours in the months leading up to that cruise talking about how amazing it was. I was just living in that energy. I was projecting myself into the magic of what I was going to experience, and then describing it from where I was sitting 4 months before it was actually going to happen, And then I would get another wave of like, God, I'm so excited. I'm so excited for this cruise. And so, yeah, pre-paving. It's like taking an event that you know is going to happen and smoothing it out, creating a path of least resistance for yourself. So, like, another good example that she uses is like traffic. Like, you're going to commute to work every day. And instead of just going into it, pre-pave your traffic. Like, I'm going to have something to keep myself occupied in case there's a slowdown. And when there is a slowdown, I'll be nice and alert, and I'll cooperate with the other drivers, and they'll cooperate with me. And sometimes I'll let people merge in front of me, and other times people will let me merge in front of them. And I'll get to wave at people and, like, give them my thanks and my smile, and they'll do the same to me. And, I'll get to make eye contact with someone as we look over and we share this moment sitting in a standstill of traffic, but I'll get to make eye contact with this other soul that I never would have gotten to see before. So just because there's an event in your world that, like, isn't your favorite doesn't mean that you can't pre-pave it and try to put some energy into it that feels a little bit better. And then as you have some more, like, nice traffic experiences, for example, the pre-paving that you're able to do next time would be even stronger, because you believe even more that traffic is not a terrible experience. It can be a delightful experience if you're in the right headspace as you're experiencing it. So pre-paving is all about that. It's like pre-paving your headspace so that when the day comes, or when the moment comes, the task comes, you have the right attitude towards it to get the most magic that you possibly can out of it. And last but not least, number 10 are affirmations. And affirmations can really be anything. Like, you can definitely look around on YouTube for affirmations specifically and find something that works for you. The first affirmation that I started with was the Deservability Treatment. That's a perfect example of, very high vibrational statements that you say over and over and over again out loud to yourself while looking in the mirror. That's the Deservability Treatment. But as I mentioned earlier, I'll also get a thought like, I'm so easy to love, and everything is always working out for me. And I'll just write pages and pages and pages and pages. This life is so fun for me. I'm always laughing. Belly laughs are my favorite. Belly laughs are my favorite. Belly laughs are my favorite. I love how much I get to laugh in my life. Like, I'll just do a page of just, I love to laugh. I love to laugh. I love funny things. I love when I get surprised, and it just, like, I can't help myself. I love when I laugh so fast I snort. I love that. So, like, again, I'll just write a whole page of affirming who I am, who I really am. reminding myself of who I really am. And I think that is the thing that all 10 of these different types of journaling have in common is, for me, each of them is a way to come back over and 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 over to my own true self.